Joe Biden is forgiving students of their federal loans. So how about tuition refunds because of canceled commencement ceremonies and classes on U.S. college campuses? Well, Senator Marco Rubio contends in a letter sent to Columbia University that the recent anti-Israel protests and campus occupations disrupted education, and college administrators did little, if anything, to stop them. Well, here with more is Campus Reform Higher Education Fellow, attorney Ken Tashjy. Ken, so Rubio's idea, is this spreading? Didn't Columbia University allow police to come in, tear down those tents, and end the occupation?
Yeah, I think Senator Rubio is taking the position, as I think many are around the country, that colleges and universities failed in their response to the protests on their campuses, which materially interfered with the educational opportunities and experiences of the vast majority of their students. And the loss of those educational experiences and opportunities should be compensated. And it's a worthy argument to make, and I appreciate Senator Rubio taking the lead on demanding such from Columbia, and hopefully that spreads to other institutions.
Well, how likely then would Columbia or any other university be to give tuition refunds, or at least partial ones, because it seems these claims may end up in court?
Well, they are likely going to end up in court. And, let's just take the basic breach of contract scenario. If you're an individual selling a product and you represent how it works, why it works, where it works, how it's going to benefit you as a consumer if you buy it, and you rely on those representations and you get that product home and it doesn't perform in the manner in which was represented, you've got a legitimate complaint for a breach of contract. And the same would hold true in higher education. Higher ed, Columbia included, makes all kinds of representations about the educational experience students will have if they come to the institution. All you have to do is look at their student handbook, their course catalogs, their very well-crafted marketing materials, their websites, all of which present representations that parents and potential students rely on. And if you fail to fulfill those representations, as it was the case with Columbia and other institutions, where they failed to provide educational experiences and opportunities like free access to world-class facilities, the ability to maintain a safe and secure campus environment, access to in-class instruction, commencement experiences, then you indeed are failing to provide what you've represented you will, and I think a viable complaint for breach of contract exists.
Well, I think definitely for Jewish students, many were prevented from actually getting through and attending classes. They were blocked from that. And so is this a serious movement, or is it just limited to Columbia? Only Columbia, I guess Columbia's Bernard College and USC canceled commencement.
Well, I think it's a serious movement that should be considered across the board. And let me might add on Jewish students. They would not only have where their educational experiences and opportunities were denied, a breach of contract complaint, but where they were denied access to campus, where they were denied entrance into buildings, where they were denied other benefits on the campus, or where they were subjected to threats or intimidation or harassment. They've got a number of other legal rationales to pursue there, among them discrimination and violation of state and federal civil rights. So I would hope and encourage those students to pursue those actions. But just across the board on the loss of educational opportunities, I think it's important that parents and students really critically evaluate the way institutions responded to these protests and to consider potentially taking their educational dollars elsewhere. I think Congress needs to continue to put pressure on these institutions to consider reimbursement at a minimum, but ultimately also to reevaluate their own policies and to demonstrate how they're going to handle these kind of protests differently down the road. And if they fail to do so, there should be a risk of losing federal funding. And last, the boards of trustees, they are ultimately the gatekeeper at these institutions over the leadership decisions of their institutions. And if they have a president who, through some type of weak, timid, anemic response, left their campus open in the control of these protesters for extended periods of time, then I think boards of trustees really need to take the appropriate steps to replace those individual presidents.
And your thoughts, Ken, on the boycott and divestment movement on college campuses? Are more colleges and universities planning to divest from Israel in response to these protests, or are those considerations quietly going away now?
I think they are quietly going away. I think one thing many institutions did do from the beginning was indicate that they would not accept any demand as part of the protester manifestos to divest in Israel corporations, or to discontinue student exchange programs or study abroad programs with Israel. And I commend those institutions that were strong in their response on that issue. Again, what we ultimately saw here with these campus protests is these presidents capitulated to the demands of these groups, and in many ways gave these individuals the ability to dictate negotiations over disembarking campus, breaking down these encampments, which again, I think was the wrong approach. They should have been much stronger and decisive at the beginning of these protests rather than at the end.
Okay, a lot of parents reevaluating whether or not they want to send their students to universities to be indoctrinated in leftist ideology and also have safety concerns there, Ken. So Ken Tashjy, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to add, ultimately for these college presidents, regardless of all the different roles and responsibilities they have, at the core of their job is to be the chief public safety officer on their campus. And for those institutional presidents that prioritize the message of the protesters and professional agitators over their students, those presidents need to go.
Okay, Ken Tashjy, Higher Education Fellow at Campus Reform. Thank you, Ken, for being with us. We appreciate it.
Gary, thanks for your time. Much appreciated.